Namaste, beautiful cosmic beings. I hope you are well. Thank you so much for tuning into this transmission. I hope it finds you in high spirits. So this transmission is all about healing. What is healing? What does that mean to us? And I invite you, as I share this transmission, to really drop into your sense of what healing means to you. So just tune in for a second. Maybe close your eyes, take your gaze inwards, and spend a moment to tune into your own healing journey. So just allow your breath to naturally deepen and soften. Feel yourself sitting in the chair and tune into your own healing journey and what has that been. What have been the highlights and the landmarks of your healing journey? Is your healing journey ongoing? And what has your healing journey shown you? What has it taught you? Just spend a few moments tuning into this. So you can pause the video here, and when you're ready, come back to this transmission. So I'm just going to get straight into this. When we talk about healing, what are we talking about healing from? So traditionally, healing is thought of as this linear process. It's an end point that you get to after spending and investing time and energy in healing modalities, maybe energy medicine, nutritional therapy, psychotherapy, whatever it might be for you. And we get to a point and we are healed. Now, for me, in my experience and my understanding, it's not such an accurate view of how I have experienced things and seen things. And I'm speaking from my experience of working through, being on my healing journey, overcoming chronic health conditions, ulcerative colitis, which affects the large intestine, serious, severe hormonal imbalances, addiction, burnout, and imbalances in my energy system. So my healing has most certainly come in cycles. Way that I can explain it is it's almost like layers, actually. So I may go through a phase in my life where I'm doing a lot of work on a particular health condition or, a particular imbalance because it's very intense and very severe at that point, as it was many, many years ago, which started me on this path. And I got myself to a point where I thought, wow, I've really overcome this. And then I'm finding now, years later, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, I'm finding that I'm still healing from that stuff that happened to me 8 years ago. I recently had my 2 wisdom teeth extracted. I made a video about it and you might have seen it. And what I realized when I sat in that dentist chair was that I had so much trauma around all of these parts of my body that have been surgically removed unceremoniously. And so much trauma sat in my body around that I had never addressed, I never even knew was there, and I never had a chance to resolve. So yes, on a physical level, I may have been able to bring my body into a remission, into a point where I no longer was experiencing the severe end of the autoimmune condition. I was able to function in the world. I came back to optimizing my bodily functions, but there was a lot at the emotional and energetic level that I didn't realize was still trapped and still unresolved. And so 8 years later, today, I'm still uncovering layers of that, and I'm still moving through those cycles. So often healing is seen as this end goal, but actually it is layers and cycles and cycles. So maybe in 4 or 5 years, I might uncover something else that I wasn't aware of that's going to help me to uncover another layer of healing and go deeper into that. Because ultimately, the adverse experiences that we have, the trauma that we have, sits within our energy system. as energy, as a stuck energy, because ultimately we are energy. That is what we are. We are physically made of energy. We emanate energy. Our thoughts are energy, absolutely anything. So when something that destabilized us, that we at the time felt shouldn't have happened, or we at the time felt made us feel unsafe, this is what people often what we see a trauma as, something that made us feel unsafe and destabilize us. And when that happened, we took on these burdens, which are stories, thought beliefs, patterns that our mind and body took on as a result of those experiences to protect us from ever having to experience that trauma again or go near that trauma again. So the trauma or the adverse experience gets locked up and gets locked away, and the mind and body then arranges itself in a way as to keep that stuck energy, that traumatic energy locked away, but also condition us, change our behavior and our patterns and our thought patterns in order to change the way that we have ourselves out there in the world to protect us from ever having to experience that trauma or open up that wound again, because it was so bad at the time that it happened. So by its very nature, a trauma is something that is energetic and is multi-layered and multi-dimensional. These stories have many, many layers to it, have many, many sets of beliefs. And this can be very entrenched and stuck into our system. And what I've learned is that when we start to connect into these parts of us that are holding those stories, holding those burdens, that are protecting that stuck energy, when we start to connect with those parts of us, that's, for me, where the healing begins to happen. The healing isn't just this point that we get to and everything is ticked off the list and that's it, I'm healed. Because you know what? That for me seems like a pretty big job and a pretty far out place to get to. The healing happens even in those small connections, those small yet significant connections that we make deep down into our system, to those parts of us that hold on to these stories, that hold on to these burdens that were created when we had those experiences. It's about those connections. So every time we connect to a part of us and we're able to acknowledge that, notice that, recognize the role that these parts of us played in protecting us, in taking on those burdens, taking on that trauma, that's where the healing can happen. It's in connection, re-establishing the lost connections, because often what happens is that these connections, and what I mean a connection of ourself to our parts is I mean self or soul energy. Connecting our self or soul energy to the parts of us, the parts of our mind, the parts of our body. And if you're familiar with internal family systems, then this will make sense to you. And if not, I have some other resources that I can share. But the idea that I'm sharing here is that the true essence of who we are is self and soul energy. And the parts of us that take on the burdens are these other energies that reside within our being, that are parts of our mind and body. Okay, different to soul energy. But of course, all of this makes up our entire being and makes us united, makes us whole, makes us who we are. Yet I'm differentiating between self and soul energy. The master is me, is my self, soul energy, and the parts of my mind and body who are working for this incredible being in technology. And it's the self, soul energy connection to the parts. Establishing that connection is where the healing takes place. So when soul energy recognizes itself, recognizes that that point that I woke up, that I awakened to the sense, to the idea that yes, the true essence of me is soul and everything else are parts of me. When I woke up to that, a huge healing took place, because immediately we establish that connection of soul self energy, and all those parts that are witnessing that can extend their connection to soul and self energy. Before that, before we've recognized and remembered that we are soul energy, the parts of us are simply just trying to work themselves out, not connecting to self or soul energy, because they didn't really know that self or soul energy was there. But as soon as self and soul energy establishes, remembers itself as the master controller of this, that immediately is a massive healing that takes place. And those of you that have awoken to your self energy will recognize this massive healing that took place. And then from then on, it's about reestablishing these connections with the individual parts of us where the healing takes place. So the burdened beliefs, the stories, the fears, these are taken on by the parts of our mind and body because of the adverse experiences that they have. And there are processes that we can use within various modalities to release those stories, release those burdens, release those energies. And that is called trauma release. And that happens through a transmutation process where we transmute these stuck energies into more of a high vibrational energy that can return to the universe and can be utilized by the system. Okay, so we unburden it from that low, dense, stuck place. And again, this is the process of healing. It's transforming those energies little by little. Now, I'm a big believer and teacher. I love teaching in holistic medicine and energy medicine. And the thing about holistic and energy medicine, particularly holistic medicine, let's say, is the broader field of all of this. When we start to integrate different holistic modalities together, we bring them together, what we're actually doing is we are allowing ourselves to create more stability and more trust in our inner world. Now, these are two really major components which lead to the trauma release. We are not going to be able to go in, soul self energy isn't going to be able to go in and connect to those parts of us that are holding the stuff without first creating stability and trust. So that's the parts of our mind and body need to trust that soul and self energy has got the capacity to do this, because remember, the parts of our mind and body have forgot before that soul self energy was here. So they're on a journey of building trust, of remembering that soul self energy is stable and is, of course, this all seeing, all powerful, courageous, compassionate, creative, clear, curious energy. So building that trust and stability slowly is really important aspect of this work. And so the holistic modalities can do that through energy medicine, through talking therapy, through working in nature, through sound healing. What we're doing is we're just dropping into our body more and more, and we're telling our body and our mind more and more that, we got this. This soul energy can totally be trusted. And so we increase those opportunities for trust and stability. We are able to then get in and drop into a deeper level quicker and faster. Healing can happen quicker, faster, and can go in deeper, can get to those deep levels and uncover more and more of those layers, those levels. So I see holistic modalities as actually catalyzing our healing. It speeds it up, because we're not just using one method and going in a linear process with that. We're bringing lots of methods together into that melting point, and we're allowing them all to mix their energies and help us drop into these deeper, more profound states of stability and groundedness, dropping us into our body, dropping us into our mind to notice and observe while self-energy holds all of that and self-energy witnesses. It's the witnessing also, which is such an integral part of healing. Soul and self energy witnessing those parts of us that went through what it went through and took on what it took on. Being seen and heard and recognized for that, but also being seen and heard and recognized for the roles and responsibilities that our mind and body has taken to get us to where we are here today. And all of that witnessing is so, so healing. So my teachers say to me, you know, it's not just the actual process of transmuting energy which is the most healing. It's the journey to get to that point. The witnessing is just as healing for those parts within us as the actual releasing, the trauma release, the releasing or the transmuting of that energy. And by releasing, what I personally mean isn't it's just released and it's gone. It's the energy is released from where it's been stuck and it's transmuted into a more higher frequency that can then actually be used for useful purposes for our body and our mind. Let's check my notes here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah. So when we are also kind of witnessing, when we are creating new habits, when we're creating new thought patterns because we're reframing how we see things, when we are making choices to deal with that situation differently, we are creating new neural pathways. And that again is very healing for our mind and our body because we don't have to default into those old ways of doing things. We don't have to fall back into maybe the victim mentality, maybe a particular thought process that kept us locked in shame or whatever it is, because those parts of us have been seen and recognized. There are so many different things that can shift in terms of our thinking and the way that we behave and when we act. And again, allowing that space to create new habits, new patterns, new thought processes, which are evolutionary, creates these new neural pathways that gets embedded in our mind, in our brain, in our bodies. Again, an aspect of healing that happens, you know, without having to have that big healing response, that big healing crisis, the big healing event. This is something that can happen as a result of just tweaking and shifting our perspective as we witness the old stuff. We let it come up, we let it transmute little by little, and we create those new neural pathways. You know, so there are so many different aspects of healing that I just wanted to spend 17 minutes so far getting into, to just give you a bit of an overview into healing, to help you to understand that your healing journey is your healing journey. And it's sacred. And only you are going to be able to fully see and understand and witness what is going on there for you. But that in itself is empowering, because empowerment is about you feeling confident to make choices of your path, of your journey for your health. And your unique insight, which cannot be the same as anyone else, is going to give you the intuition and intelligence, wisdom, and knowledge in order for you to make the choices for you that feel relevant and feel comfortable, and that you intuitively know is going to lead on to the next step. So I hope that you have found this transmission helpful. Please leave a comment, get in touch. I would love to stay connected. Please like and follow my profiles and stay in touch. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.